Imagine $4,000 landing in your account every month, not from a job, not from Social Security, just from money you already own. Sounds like something only millionaires get. And if you've ever searched how to live off dividends, you've probably seen numbers like $2 million, $3 million. But here's what most people don't realize. Getting to that $4,000 a month or $48,000 a year can be a lot more reachable than that. We're talking hundreds of thousands, not millions, for some approaches. I'm Rich from Retire Smarter, and today we're going to break down what it actually takes to generate $4,000 a month in dividend income. If you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, I'd bet this thought has crossed your mind more than once. What if my savings just ran out? It's one of the most common fears people carry into retirement. You picture your nest egg slowly shrinking month after month, watching that number get smaller, and honestly, that's an uncomfortable feeling. For some people, it's downright scary. Dividend income flips that picture on its head. Instead of regularly selling off pieces of your portfolio to create income, your investments pay you through dividends or other income distributions. Now, I'm not going to pretend this is magic or risk-free. Your investments can still go up or down in value, and income isn't guaranteed. But think about the difference for a second. Watching your balance shrink every month versus your money working for you, paying you month after month while you hold on to what you've built. For a lot of people, that's the difference between dreading retirement and actually looking forward to it. So let's break down how this actually works, and then look at 3 different ways people approach it, with real numbers for each. Let's keep this simple, because once you get this one concept, everything else in this video clicks into place. Let's say you own stock in a company, meaning you own a small piece of that business. When that company makes a profit, it has a choice. It can reinvest that money back into growing the business, or it can share some of it with the people who own stock, the shareholders. That payment to shareholders? It's called a dividend. If you own shares of that company, you get a portion of that payout based on how many shares you have. And here's the part that matters most for what we're talking about today. That payout can become a real, recurring source of income, money showing up in your account on a schedule, just for owning what you already own. Now here's a term you'll hear a lot, dividend yield. All this means is how much income you're getting compared to how much you've invested, shown as a percentage. So if you put $100 into a stock and it pays you $5 a year in dividends, that's a 5% yield. The higher the yield generally, the less money you need to invest to hit a certain income goal. And this is important, higher yields often come with higher risk. We'll come back to that. Let's make this real. Let's say there's someone, we'll call her Linda, who's been a steady saver for years and has started wondering what it would actually take to generate $4,000 a month, $48,000 a year, from dividend income alone. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's where you'll be in 10 or 15 years. Either way, the math works the same. Let's walk through 3 different approaches Linda might look into, and what each one would realistically require. The first option has a fancy name, but stick with me. The concept is more intuitive than it sounds. There's a category of funds, ETFs, that do 2 things to generate income. First, they hold a basket of stocks like a regular fund would. Second, they also sell something called call options on those stocks. Without getting too deep into the weeds, selling these options brings in extra cash, which gets passed along to investors as part of the fund's income distribution. The result? These funds often pay noticeably more than a typical dividend stock, generally somewhere in the range of 9% to 11% annually, depending on the fund and market conditions. Some funds push higher than that, but they tend to come with additional trade-offs we'll talk about in a moment. So what does that mean for Linda? If she found funds yielding around 9% to 11%, she'd need roughly $435,000 to $535,000 invested to generate that $48,000 a year. Now, I've got to be honest with you. Distributions that high don't come for free. These funds can be more volatile, and because part of the strategy involves selling those call options, there's a trade-off. If the underlying stocks shoot up in value, the fund might not capture all of that upside. And distribution rates like this can shift with market conditions. There's no promise they'll stay at 9% to 11% forever. So yes, this approach can get Linda to her goal, but it comes with more moving parts, which means more homework on your end and probably a conversation with someone who can walk you through the specific fund before you jump in. Option number 2 is one you've probably heard of, even if the name sounds a little technical: R.E.I.Ts, or real estate investment trusts. Think of a R.E.I.T as a company that owns a portfolio of real estate: apartment buildings, shopping centers, office space, warehouses. By law, R.E.I.Ts have to distribute most of their taxable income to shareholders as dividends. That's exactly why R.E.I.Ts often carry higher yields than your average stock. Now, the R.E.I.T world is big, and yields vary a lot depending on what type of R.E.I.T you're looking at. Your more mainstream equity R.E.I.Ts, the ones that own and operate physical properties, are currently averaging yields closer to 4% to 5%. But on the higher end of the spectrum, specialty R.E.I.Ts, like mortgage R.E.I.Ts and certain income-focused funds, can yield somewhere in the 7% to 9% range. Just know that the higher the yield, the more risk tends to come with it, and that's especially true here. So what does a realistic number look like for Linda if she focused on higher yield R.E.I.Ts in that 7% to 9% range? She'd need roughly $535,000 to $685,000 invested to hit that $48,000 a year mark. Here's something worth knowing. A lot of R.E.I.Ts pay dividends monthly instead of quarterly. For someone planning a monthly budget in retirement, that can feel a lot more like a regular paycheck than waiting every 3 months. But, and this matters, R.E.I.T income is tied to what's happening in real estate and the broader economy. If property values drop, vacancies rise, or interest rates move the wrong way, that can affect both the dividend payments and the value of the R.E.I.T itself. The highest yielding R.E.I.Ts often carry that yield because the market sees extra risk baked in. So if you're looking at this approach, the takeaway is, the income can be solid, but this isn't a set it and forget it, zero risk kind of investment. Here's our third approach, and I'll be upfront. The math on this one looks very different from the first two. Dividend Aristocrats is the name for a specific group of companies in the S&P 500 that have increased their dividend payout every single year for at least 25 years in a row. Not just paid a dividend, but have increased it every year for a quarter century. We're talking big household name companies across all kinds of industries. Here's the trade-off. That kind of consistency comes at the cost of yield. Dividend Aristocrats currently average somewhere around 2.5%, a far cry from the 9% to 11% we talked about in Approach 1. So let's do the math for Linda. At an average yield of around 2.5%, she'd need roughly $1.9 million invested to generate that same $48,000 a year. Now, and I want to let that land for a second. That's not $500,000. That's not even $1 million. That's $1.9 million, nearly 4 times what the covered call ETF approach requires to produce the exact same monthly income. So why would anyone choose this route? One word: consistency. These are companies with decades, sometimes 50+ years, of track records showing they keep raising dividends through recessions, through market crashes, through every kind of economic condition you can imagine. If predictability matters more to you than squeezing out the highest possible yield, this is the kind of approach that can let you sleep easier at night, even if it means a much bigger number on the front end. And here's the thing, you don't have to pick just one of these. A lot of people build a blend, maybe a core of steady, reliable dividend payers like these, mixed with some higher yield funds or R.E.I.Ts to bring the overall number down significantly. There's no single right answer here. It comes down to your comfort with risk, your timeline, and what helps you feel confident about your plan. Before we wrap up, I want to flag something, because this is exactly where I see people get into trouble, especially once they start shopping around for the highest number they can find. It's tempting to look at a 9% yield next to a 2.5% yield and think, well, that's obviously the better deal. More income for less money. And look, I get the appeal. But here's the thing. A really high yield can sometimes be a warning sign, not a bonus. Here's why. Yield is just a percentage. It's calculated by comparing the payout to the price. So if a stock's price drops sharply, the yield number goes up even if the actual dollar payout hasn't changed at all. A struggling investment can sometimes look like a great deal on paper, simply because its price has fallen. Other times, a high yield can mean a company or fund is paying out more than it's actually bringing in, which isn't always something that can continue long term. This doesn't mean high-yield investments are bad. Some of the approaches we covered today have legitimately higher yields for good reasons. It just means highest number wins is the wrong way to shop. Before you get excited about any yield, 5%, 9%, 15%, whatever it is, ask why it's that high. That question matters just as much as the number itself. Let's bring this back to the original question. How quickly could someone realistically get to $4,000 a month in dividend income? Honestly, it depends almost entirely on where you're starting from. But let's put some rough numbers on it, because "it depends" isn't very satisfying. Say Linda already has $200,000 saved in retirement accounts, and she's contributing regularly, let's say a few $100s a month. Getting to the $435,000 to $535,000 range for the covered call ETF path could realistically land somewhere in the 7 to 12-year range, depending on how much she's contributing and how the dividends get reinvested along the way. The R.E.I.T path at $535,000 to $685,000 would take a bit longer from the same starting point. And the Dividend Aristocrats path at $1.9 million is a fundamentally different conversation. From $200,000, that's a multi-decade journey for most people, which is exactly why blending approaches is so common and so practical. If you're starting closer to zero, push those numbers out further, but the path itself doesn't change. Every dollar you invest starts working immediately, and reinvested dividends mean your income grows faster than your contributions alone would suggest. More shares buying more dividends, buying more shares, compounding along the way. The bottom line? This isn't an overnight thing, and there's no shortcut around the math, but it is math, a real path with real timelines, not some fantasy reserved for people with 8 figures in the bank. Some routes just get you there faster than others. And now you've got a rough sense of what those timelines actually look like. Okay, let's turn this into something practical, not just information you'll forget by tomorrow. Start by pulling up your current retirement or brokerage accounts and taking a real look at what's already there. Even if it feels modest, that's your starting point. And here's the thing, it's already further along than zero. Next, look at what you're actually invested in right now, and check whether any of it already pays dividends, and at what yield. This is the step that surprises people the most. A lot of folks find out they're already a few steps down this road without ever realizing it. And finally, if this is something that interests you, spend some time this week just researching, not buying, just learning about the categories we covered today. Covered call, ETFs, real investment, trusts, and dividend aristocrats. See which one feels like the right fit for your comfort with risk and your timeline. If you've got a financial advisor, and this is a great conversation to bring to them, 3 small steps. None of them require you to do anything risky today, and just to get a clearer picture of where you actually stand. The idea of living off dividends might have felt like something reserved for the ultra-wealthy, multi-millions yacht in retirement territory. But when you break down the actual numbers, like we did today, it starts looking less like a fantasy, and more like a real plan with real milestones. Some of those milestones are closer than others, but they're all reachable. Remember Linda? She didn't need to be a millionaire to picture this. She just needed to know where the numbers actually land, and now, so do you. You don't have to have it all figured out today. But now you know the path exists, and you know roughly what it looks like and how long it might take. If this helped you see dividend investing a little differently, hit subscribe. Every week, we break down another piece of the retirement puzzle just like this, so you can make smarter decisions with your money as you head toward retirement. It's a blessing to be part of your retirement journey. Be well, and I'll see you in the next one.